This afternoon I'm going to make a simple trellis out of recycled reinforcing mesh and some stakes in order to plant some sugar snap peas and some bar lottie beans. For the trellis I build, I use some recycled concrete reinforcing mesh, 2 recycled plastic stakes, and obviously you'll need a mallet and some bolt cutters to cut the mesh. You could also use an angle grinder. So I started by just cutting the mesh to size. The bolt cutter makes pretty short work of this reinforcing mesh, but you could also, as I said, use a grinder to just cut through the steel. Now, as always, measure twice, cut once. Had to cut another row off this. I use these little offcuts as small trellises for wicking beds and things like that, so waste not, want not. Then I drove the 2 stakes across my veggie garden bed. I've only got one bed going at the moment for the spring garden, and basically just hammer them in to a depth where they're nice and sturdy. And these should be as far apart as your mesh is wide. Don't mind the headgear there, that's just sun protection. Being a redhead in Australia, you need it. Hold the mesh up against the stakes and then simply use zip ties to attach the mesh to the stakes. What can't zip ties do? Well, lots of things, but they're very useful. Nice and sturdy. I then went about planting the sugar snap peas. I started planting these 20 centimeters apart, which is the size of the spacing in the mesh, but I realized I could fit a lot more in, so I went back and slotted an extra plant in between each one, so they're 10 centimeters apart. This bed I made recently by tilling and then laying down cardboard and then composting on top of the cardboard. So as I'm planting these, I was actually poking holes through the cardboard into the native soil so the roots can grow down into the soil. Then I just put some mulch back around the plants. This is sugarcane mulch. It's a really common byproduct of the sugarcane industry in Australia and relatively inexpensive. It breaks down very quickly though, which can be a bit of a problem, but works well for veggie gardens. Then I went about planting the beans. This is some old seed, so I overplanted. I planted 2 or 3 seeds every hole. I'm going to have to thin, well hopefully I have to thin, but I wanted to overplant just in case the germination rate's a bit low because the seed is old. Hopefully I'll have at least 1 in each position. The beans I did plant a full 10 centimeters apart, so they've got a bit more room than the sugar snap peas. So there you go, that's the completed trellis. Now if you're wondering a little bit about the veggie garden, as I said, I tilled it with my mini tiller. I got a video on that, I'll put it down below. And then just put cardboard on top, then a bit of compost, sugarcane mulch, and it's bordered with just some old hardwood that I found, or that my folks had lying around from a deck they disassembled. So repurpose whenever you can. You'll also notice I've got an electric fence around the garden here. That's just for my dogs because they will make a mess of any garden. I just use a little solar energizer. I've got a video on how electric fences work too, but quick rundown, you've got your red wire there, which is the positive. It's connected to the wire that runs around the garden, and then your negative is earthed, in this case just to a steel bar I've driven into the ground. And then if an animal comes up and touches the fence, they're also touching the ground, so they complete the circuit and get a little zap. If you want to know a bit more about that, do check out that video. I'll put that one down below as well. Just basically an overview of how to set up a simple electric fence. So anyway, short and sweet, that's how I'm going to set up trellises, or that's how I do set up trellises in my veggie garden. Works fine. Really happy to be getting back into the veggie garden. I've neglected it a little bit of late. If you've seen my older videos, you know I did have cassava in this spot, and that was sort of a long-term crop. So I removed that in the winter and devoted this area to just, high turnover annual crops. So thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of it. Have a good one.